Welcome to the 2025 Get-a-Grant Workshop. Let me turn Taylor Swift off here. She does not need to be a part of this, although I wish she was. So good morning, welcome. My name is Lee Deal, and I'm an education specialist for Ag in the Classroom. Hopefully I've seen many of you. We've got some coordinators on here and some teachers. So hopefully I've seen some of you around this summer at Summer Ag Institutes. So today we are going to be talking all things teacher grants. So if you're here, that means that you are looking for some kind of like inspiration or tips or information about applying for our teacher grants. And so hopefully we're going to get some information in your hands that will help you in hopefully becoming a successful grant recipient for us this year. So here's kind of where we're headed today. We will talk about the grant details for both the book grant and the project grant. We'll talk a little bit about the book grant books and some lesson ideas that kind of go along with them. I've got a couple of the books kind of beside me here that I'll talk through some of my favorites and my highlights from each of the categories. I'll give you some examples of previous recipients of the book grant. And then we'll also talk all things project grant, talk about some inspiration for some projects that you might be able to do, some things that have been awarded in the past, and some cool projects from the last couple of years that we've thought are just exceptional. I'm also going to actually walk you through the application on JotForm, kind of pull up JotForm on my computer and show you kind of step by step what that looks like as you go through it. And then we'll also view a couple of successful applications from last year. So I'll actually show you what we are kind of looking for in the responses to that application, and hopefully that'll be beneficial to you in applying for and filling out your own application. If you've got questions as we go ahead and type those into the Q&A box. I've got Chris and Kevin here on here also, and so we'll kind of make sure that you get all your questions answered before the end here. So we're going to try and wrap this up in an hour and get you on your merry way. So hopefully you're joining us today in like your sweatpants or something cozy. So really glad that you joined us. Misty, you have a raised hand. Are you able to type in the Q&A? Maybe. We'll go ahead and get started. If you've got a question, Misty, go ahead and type it in that Q&A, and Kevin and Chris or myself will get your question answered there. So we'll talk book grant first. So the purpose of both of these grants, actually this text box is kind of copy pasted on both book grant and project grant slide. But the purpose of both of these is to integrate agriculture into your spring classroom curriculum. So these grants are intended to be a spring project that you would incorporate into your classroom. And with the book grant, the books that you choose should be incorporated into some kind of project, lesson, or unit study in the spring semester. So the basics of this is it's a $250 grant. Yes, Misty, it is recorded, and I will send the link out to everybody, even the people who registered but didn't get a chance to join us. They will all get the link. It'll be on our website. So it's $250 grant. The application deadline is October 17th, and then we'll notify you by November 7th. There are a couple of like deadlines and things that we need you to help us out with. So after you fill the application out and we notify you whether you have received it, if you are a successful recipient, there are a couple more forms that we actually will ask you to fill out throughout the school year. So you'll have a funding agreement that will be completed and signed both by you and by an administrator in your school building. And that will be done by December 5th, hopefully, is the deadline for that one. And if you fail to submit your funding agreement, then you do actually forfeit your right to the grant. So we will not send you your books until you fill out that funding agreement. And then at the end of the school year, at the end of May of 2026, after you have completed the project that you intended to do with your books that you got from us, there is a final report where you will tell us kind of how it went, give us some information, maybe a picture or two of your students with the books and doing whatever lessons and activities you did with them. And yeah, so you'll let us know how it went in that final report. And if you fail to submit that, then unfortunately we actually do blacklist your school from receiving the grant. So it's important to us to follow back up with you, figure out how your project went, and kind of the cool things that you were able to do. So those two forms are actually part of this grant process as well. So you will have to make sure that you fill those out. And the way that we do the book grant every year, if you are brand new to our book grant, is that we actually come up with categories. So we compile a list throughout the year of kind of our favorite new ag accurate books. They're either some of them are like as young as pre-K, all the way up to young adult novels. We compile our list of our favorite books, kind of categorize them, and then offer them to you via this book grant. So on our website, if you haven't flipped through or you don't have a copy of that book and project grant packet in front of you, we show you all the books that are in all of the categories. And of course, I'll talk about them on the presentation. And there's a price listed for each one of the books on the book grant in that pamphlet. That price is actually about half price of what you would see if you went to buy the book on its own, like on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. We get them half price from the publisher and then offer them to you at the same cost. So it's a $250 grant, but you're actually getting more like $500 worth of books via this grant. So you pick a category, one of the categories that I'll talk about today, and then you spend $250 in that category, however you see fit. So you could get a whole classroom set of one of the books in the category. You could get, if you want to do like lit circles, you could get 3 or 4 of each of the books. However, you can spend $250 within one category is kind of how this works. And then you would tie it into some kind of unit or project or lesson that goes along with the content of the book that you got from us, book or books. So kind of what we're going to do in this presentation is I'm going to talk you through the books, give you a couple highlights of some things that are some of my favorites in each category, and then I will give you some of our Ag in the Classroom lessons that I think pair really well with these books. You do not necessarily have to pair the books with an Ag in the Classroom lesson. It's preferred. We are giving you some inspiration and some ideas and some full free lesson plans that can kind of go with these. So it's a nice way to pair these books that we're giving to you also with some of our lessons and resources that we have on our website. So when you get to the application, this is kind of what you'll see, and I'm going to pull up JotForm here in a minute, but you're going to give us some school information, teacher school information. You'll select your books, and the way that the JotForm form application is set up is it will auto-populate, it'll auto-calculate, I should say, the total amount of money that you're spending in the category so that it kind of works that through for you. You'll give us a title of the project. So you will have to name the project that you're doing and the number of students that it is going to impact. And then you'll give us some learning standards. So tie it to the educational standards of what you're hoping to accomplish by using these books. Give us, of course, some objectives, an overview, and a timeline of what you're going to do. Connect it to agriculture in some way. And of course, all of these books are already have agriculture connections. So that should hopefully be pretty easy for you to connect it to food, fiber, or fuel in some way for your students. And then tell us how you are planning to evaluate the project. So I'm going to back out of the presentation here, and I'm going to go to the grant page and actually show you this application. So this is our homepage. Hopefully this is not the first time you're seeing our website here, agintheclassroom.org. And you're going to be under programs and events and then teacher grants. We'll talk about book grant here first. So this is what I was just talking about, that there are these prices that are listed on the right-hand side here with all of these books. So you're spending $250 at that price point in whichever category it is that you want to pick from. So the application is on JotForm. This is what the application looks like. I'm kind of explaining all of this information to you, the grant amount, how it works, the fine print, all that good stuff. So here's where you get into some of your information. So you'll tell us your name, the grade you teach, all of your school information. Also, you'll tell us the name of your principal and administrator. We have found that this really helps buy-in from you and from your school if we're able to get a hold of your principal and get them to sign your funding agreement as well, so that they're aware of the awesome things you're doing in your classroom as well, what county you're in, all that good stuff. So you'll pick one of these categories, and once you pick it, then all of the books that are in that category will auto-populate here, and then you'll get to select how many of each of those books that you want. And like I said, it auto-calculates how much you're spending there. So you'll go through your books, pick which books you want, tell us how many of them that you want, and then here's where you will name your project in your grant application. So you'll name it, tell us how many students it's going to impact, your learning standards, objectives, kind of a project timeline. So be specific with this, provide some details about what kind of things you're hoping to do, what kind of lessons you're going to include, when will you utilize the books in the scope of the project or the activity. As specific as possible is better, so that we can kind of get a good understanding as we're reviewing the grant applications, of kind of what you're intending to do. We want to be able to, in some way, replicate it if we had to. That's kind of like if you're writing a lesson plan in school or as a teacher there. So how your project relates to agriculture. So just tell us real quick, how it connects to food, fiber, and fuel, and then how you're planning to evaluate your project. And then you'll give us a signature and go ahead and submit there. So that's what the application looks like. I do want to show you an example of a couple of previous ones that were successful. So I skipped all the way past all the personal information here so that this is anonymous from one of our recipients from last year. But the title of this project was Spring Garden Revival, and it used books in a like gardening and soil category. So they told us how many students they were going to have. They actually went ahead and copied the entire standards into this learning standards section. So that was really helpful, because we're pretty good, but we don't have all the educational standards memorized. So it's nice for us to see them kind of pasted out here. They told us their objectives. So they're going to do this in their second grade classrooms, and they're going to do a garden unit, a garden project that they're going to tie in with these soil and garden books. So in the fall, they're going to do garden maintenance. The winter, they're going to prepare for planting seeds. And then in the spring, once they have their books in hand, then they'll do their book study, get kids excited about gardening, and then maintain that school garden kind of in the spring and then into the summer as well. So gardening is a direct link to agriculture. It'll also tie into our monarch butterfly study, kind of tying it into some other things they're doing in their curriculum. And then they're going to do, for their project evaluation, they're going to do a pre-test and then a post-test on gardening and soil knowledge. So that's kind of a successful application, one of them for a second grade classroom. The other one I have up here is all about social emotional learning, and it's an Earth Day project, Earth Day unit that they're going to use the books for. So we had a social emotional learning category last year, which was a pretty popular category, and they were going to use some of these SEL books to do an Earth Day project in this activity. So they're going to work in groups, and they're actually going to create, they're going to read the books and then create a community service project that somehow ties into some content that they learned in those books. So I think they probably purchased like each book in the category, like 2 or 3 of them, or however many they could get for that money. So then this one is a little bit more like short and sweet, but also still gets the point across. So you can kind of see the span of kind of what is acceptable or what would be typically awarded. So I will say that probably, yeah, so they did their learning standards here, and they copied and pasted the entire standard there. So definitely do that. And as much information as you want to or can give us about the project that you're going to do is going to get us to understand what your goal is, and hopefully get you to where we can send you some books. So that's a couple of examples of some previous successful applicants for our book grant. So kind of an idea of what kinds of things we're looking for there. Where do I need to be? I have this little pop-up thing. No. There it is. This little pop-up thing that like gets right in the way of what I need to do here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll talk through some of the books and kind of show you some of our lessons and activities that you could pair with them if you wanted to, if you were looking for some inspiration. So the first category here that I'll talk about is garden books for early readers. So 3 out of the books in this category are actually board books, which is pretty cool. I have a 2- and a 4-year-old at home, and I'm definitely taking home some of the extra copies of these to read them to my boys. My personal favorite in this category is this Vegetables and Underwear. It's a pretty revolutionary title. It's a bunch of vegetables and underwear in the book. So so pretty fun. If you've got pre-K kindergarten kids, they're going to be really into that. And then of course the other ones are all garden related as well, with some really nice illustrations. I went ahead and linked on the web page, which I'll talk about at the end, just to our entire like garden and soil lesson category page, and then you can kind of filter by age level for whatever is going to work for your students. But these are 3 lessons that could probably pair with any of the books in this category. The first one, of course, that pairs really well with vegetables and underwear is the Soil Your Undies activity. If you've not heard one of us talk about this activity, then you were probably zoning out because we talk about it at almost every presentation that we give. But Soil Your Undies is an activity where you get some tidy whitey underwear, white cotton underwear, and you bury them underground. So you would keep one back as your control to kind of remember what that pair of underwear looked like at the beginning, bury them underground, soil them, and then dig them back up at various points in time. And then if you have healthy soil, then the underwear will start to decompose. So this would have been at the beginning of this example that I have here of what the underwear looked like. We left them in the ground for a month or 2, and we dug them back up, and they had started to decompose here. So you can see it's kind of fraying, and the decomposers there in the soil are kind of eating through the underwear. Leave them in another month or 2, and you'll get even more decomposition. It happens pretty quick if you've got healthy soil. So that would have been probably 3 months after we buried it, and then another month is all it would take until you get to the point where you have no cotton, no organic fibers left in your undies. So all you've got left here is the elastic waistband and then the stitching there. So I'm getting underwear fibers all over me right now. So this all it takes is just a few months. You could do it with in the span of the spring semester if you were going to do this with your students with this category, but a really fun one that you can modify for pretty much any grade level. I mean, kindergarteners would I have a 4-year-old and he would like to dig the hole and place the underwear in. Or if you have high schoolers, then of course you could talk about all the decomposition and the decomposers and what makes a healthy ecosystem and all that good stuff. A couple other ones, handprint flower. They would have your kiddos trace their hand, place them as you can see on this example here. Place them in a flower, and then put some seeds in the middle. Those are just sunflower seeds from the grocery store. Talks loosely about parts of a flower and plant anatomy. And then the other one is growing letters that I have on here. So it uses grass seed, use cheap construction paper from the dollar store. It decomposes better. They'd take a glue stick and they could write their name or just a letter, whatever kind of ELA stuff you're doing with your kindergartners or your early readers. Have them do that with the glue stick and then sprinkle grass seed on top of it. And then if they place it onto the ground and wet it, then it will actually grow up because that construction paper will decompose and it'll grow in the shape of whatever letter that they put on there. So those are a few ideas of lessons that you could pair with the garden books for early readers category. The next category is transportation. We're doing all of our stuff this year is all themed on roads, rivers, and rails. We're celebrating the 100th anniversary of Route 66 next year and how that's integral to agriculture. And so we did a transportation category to kind of align with that theme. If Kevin was presenting this, he would be talking about Someone Builds the Dream. He loves this book, and it's a really good one. He loves it for good reason. I have to do right by my children and talk about these construction site books. If you've got little boys in your family, you've probably read Goodnight, Goodnight Construction Site. We sure have in our house 100 bajillion times. There's actually a number, like 10 or so books in that category, in that series of books. And these are 2 of them, and we have 2 of them in this category. This one specifically, Farming Strong All Year Long, we have read no fewer than 700 times in my house. We've actually gone through 3 copies of this book because it's not a board book, it's paper pages, and my boys read it so often that they just destroy it. So we love this one. These are really, really good construction, transportation kind of related books. So that's transportation. I linked you on the website to all of our supply chain and transportation lessons. These are some new activities that we developed this year that go along with transportation. So we developed an activity booklet. This is targeted at about 2nd grade, but of course you utilize it with your students however whatever kind of abilities they can handle here. But it covers all content areas. So we've got science, art, math, social studies, ELA, all the good things here. And it's just puzzles. So we've got like just following kind of the path that corn takes from the farm all the way to the grocery store. We've got mazes, we've got a crossword puzzle, we've got coloring on the back. So a lot of really good stuff in this transportation activity booklet. On the website, this is uploaded in a number of ways. You can download and print the entire thing, or you can just download one single activity in here if just one of them is really cool to you. We also have transportation puzzles. So there's, I think, 5 or 6 different ones of these, and you can kind of see on the screen here. Those are little puzzle pieces across the bottom, and then you cut them out and try to map your way, get the milk truck to the store, or there's some roads, some rivers, and some rails, depending on which one you use. So those are a good one if you've got little kids that you're teaching there. And then we're really excited about road trip bingo. This has a lot of different applications, we think. So people make bingo games for everything these days, for every award show or football game or whatever. So we went ahead and made a road trip bingo. So these are all things that you might see driving down an Illinois roadway. We have printable versions. So there's 4 different printable cards, so you can kind of distribute them randomly to your students. And then we also have an online interactive version that actually like functions. Like you pull it up and then you can mark the cards. There's little green info buttons on the each of the cards that kind of pops up a little 1 or 2 sentence like description of why that thing is important to Illinois agriculture and transportation. So that's all on the website as well on our Roads, Rivers, and Rails page. A couple other transportation lessons or supply chain kind of related things that could pair with these books. Tinfoil flatboat is a good one for Illinois. So you may do a variation of this in your classroom already, but just not our lesson plan version of it. But basically you take a piece of tinfoil and try to make a boat that will hold the most weight. And then we use pennies to distribute the weight and see how many pennies your boat can hold. We also have one called Tassel to Table that a team of our coordinators created this lesson, but there's a number of different cards in the deck per se. Give them out to your students, have them try and place themselves. These are all people that are involved in the farming food supply chain, and they try to place themselves in order of how food gets from the farm all the way to your table. And then transportation is integral. There's like 5 or 6 different transportation cards, and they kind of get evenly spaced throughout the entire process. So a really good one, kind of opening students' eyes to how many different people and jobs are involved in getting food to us. And then, of course, toothpick bridge. This is another one that you've probably done a different variation of, but trying to build a bridge out of marshmallows and toothpicks, popsicle sticks, straws, whatever you've got that can hold the most weight. Next category is family and traditions. This one, every single book is kind of about a different thing. So I paired one lesson with each one of them, and I'll kind of fly through them. The Table is a story about a table that is in one family, and then by the end of the book, it kind of moves to a different family and starts new traditions. We have a lot of different resources about like different cultures and food and how each culture has different staple foods that kind of go along with their people. And so we just kind of generalized here with this one and did a colors on your plate lesson using the My Plate, the nutrition facts, and the food groups. And that can be a good conversation about family and food and dinner tables. Still There Was Bread is a really good one. I should have brought it in here. I'm not sure why I didn't. I also am a sourdough baker at home, and so I love this one. I got a soft spot for this one. But we've got a lesson called Wheat Milling. Wheat milling is looking at the entire farm to fork process of making bread, of creating flour to make bread. So you use wheat heads that you kind of rub between your hands and separate out the wheat kernels, which then you can put into a pepper grinder and actually grind them into flour, and students can see the entire process from start to finish. Love that lesson. Seasons on the Farm is written by an Illinois author, just talking about all the different things that happen on the farm throughout the season. We have a lesson called Farm Boots that pairs with another book that we really love. It's another Liesl Detlefsen book, actually, but it talks about the different kinds of boots that farmers wear. And so they just get to decorate boots and talk about what they're going to use their boots for. Apple Pie Tired is a book about a little girl who is helping her family bake a bunch of apple pies, and she gets really tired while doing it, and then her family swoops in and helps her at the end. We've got an apple chain activity that talks about the life cycle of an apple. And so you use a couple of red paper plates and then all these cutouts that are in the lesson plan. And it talks about how an apple starts with a seed, and then the tree grows, and then you get an apple blossom, which gets pollinated by a bee, and then it turns into a little green apple, and then it ripens into a red apple, and those things all kind of stuff inside of the paper plate apple contraption there at the end. So that's another one, a good one to pair with any Apple resources. And there's a bunch of Apple lessons on the website. This is just kind of one that goes, I think, well with this book. They're on our website. I just saw a question there. Angela, they are on our website, and I'm going to show you at the very end, the last slide here. I have compiled all of these books and all the lessons that I'm talking about onto a specific page on our website that you can actually find everything like a one-stop shop. So I will show you that at the very end on our grant page as well. Gardens Are for Growing is a really sweet one. I should have brought that one in. A story about a dad and his daughter gardening throughout the season. We have a ton of gardening lessons on our website as well, but Garden in the Glove is a good one to kind of get them started in this. You plant little seeds, and by plant, I mean put them on a cotton ball and wet the cotton ball to give the seeds some moisture there, and then put them into the hands of a glove and put it somewhere where it's going to be warm enough to germinate, and they can see those seeds germinating. Akeem Keeps Bees, a story about a family who keeps bees. We have a lot of pollinator lessons on our website as well, but one of our favorite ones is this Build a Bee Hotel. So you use these little bee straws and a can, kind of recycling some other materials, decorate it like a bee, and make a little habitat for wild native bees to lay their eggs in that will then hatch into the next generation of bees. So hang this in a little tree or somewhere around your school. Okay, that's Family and Traditions. I'm flying through here because I want to make sure that I have time to get through all the books and then also the project grant as well. So keep typing your questions there into the chat, and we'll make sure we get to all of them. Compost worms and soil is another decomposing soil worm category here. Worm Makes a Sandwich is a really, really good one. My personal favorite in this category is Poo Pile on the Prairie. It's got a funny title, so even if you've got students who are reluctant readers, they're going to really like this one. And then it's very, very educational. It's got really cool illustrations about all of the decomposition process of a poo pile on the prairie. So one of our favorites in that category. I linked you on the page to all of our soil lessons. One of our favorite ones is classroom vermicomposting. So you can use a couple of clear cups, wrap one of them in electrical tape, black electrical tape, or construction paper, or whatever you've got around. And then also wrap the lid or cover the lid in darkness there too, because worms like darkness. They live underground in the soil. And then keep one clear just for the sake of observing. Get some decomposing worms. You can get them at any like bait shop or Casey's gas station, whatever you've got around you. Get some decomposing worms and some soil, and then you feed them, give them paper scraps, kind of give them what they need, and then keep them like this most of the time so the worms can live in the darkness like they want to. And then when you want to observe the kind of the decomposition that's happening, pull it out and let your students look through that cup. So these ones need fed and papered, but I'll feed them in a little bit here. So that's classroom vermicomposting. We have the cup version, and then also a version that uses like a whole 50-gallon tote too, that is a little bit larger scale there. Candy core sampling, soil your undies would be another really good one to do with this category. We've got coloring pages, soil sand, where you're planting grass seeds in a little pantyhose and creating a chia pet that's a little soil sand. So a lot of really, really cool soil lessons on our website as well. Next category here is investigating the natural world. Lots and lots of good ones in here. My favorites are these three that are kind of all part of a series. So we started with What's Inside a Flower and then realized that there were actually two more in the series and bought them both and kind of created a category out of it. But it's describing what is inside of a flower, kind of at a microscopic level, and just really good information here. Lots of stuff for your kiddos to kind of dig into there. So all of these books in here are kind of loosely pollinator based because birds can be pollinators too. And so I chose to pair this category with our pollinator lessons, and I'll talk to you about a few of those as well. So one of our newer ones this year is circuit bugs. So if you're doing fourth grade, if you're a fourth grade teacher, then circuits might be on your list of curriculum things for science. And so this uses diode lights and then a little battery, and then you kind of wrap them around a clothespin and then decorate them like a bug. So that's a really cool one, a new one that we did at all of our Summer Ag Institute presentations. But if you've got littler kids, we've got stuff for them too. Butterfly life cycle is a really fun one, using different types of pasta to show the entire life cycle of a butterfly. Parts of a flower uses these cutouts to talk about all the different parts of a flower that are integral to the actual pollination process and the flower reproduction process. And then you put them, you attach them together using a paper brad, and then you can flip them around. And on the backside, they have written all the different like functions and the names of each of those parts of a flower, and then it assembles into a flower. So that's parts of a flower. And then flower talk is one we did last summer as well, that talks about how pollinators use different UV rays. They see color differently. They see light and color differently than we do. And so they can see flowers kind of in a different way. And that's why flowers have different colored petals. But you use these black light markers, black light pens, which have of course, the black light and then, or the pen, and then the light on the front of it. So they would use this paper to kind of map their way, create a path, and then pass it to a friend, and the friend has to decode the path. A really fun one talking about pollinators there. And then the last category of books that I'll talk about are young adult books by Illinois authors. So we have quite a number of young adult books that we kind of promote and talk about and just pass around and read in our office. We've actually even done some of these with a book club with our county level coordinators. And a lot of them actually are written by Illinois authors, which is really, really cool. We love when we get to work with authors that are actually from our state. And so these are a number of them that we've liked in the last handful of years. My favorite one is The Labors of Hercules Beale. I read this one as part of a book club with our county people and our state staff here last year, but it ties in some mythology stuff. So if you have got young adult readers that are also into mythology, then this would be a really, really good one to get them involved with here. But it's about a boy named Hercules who lives on a greenhouse nursery up in like Massachusetts or up in New England there somewhere. And he's got this amazing teacher that challenges him to reenact the labors of Hercules in his life. And he kind of finds himself along the way as he goes, but it's so well written. It's so good. And we really, really have been promoting this one pretty hard. Gary Schmidt actually came on and talked to our coordinators, and he's just amazing. With our young adult novels, these are all about different things, and you can search our website and find some different lessons that might pair with some of these. But I also wanted to mention with our young adult books that we have reading guides for a lot of these. I think like over half of this category, we have developed a reading guide that goes with it. So these are on the website and of course linked on the page that I will show you. But it just walks you through chapter by chapter and helps you and your students kind of create a discussion, a thoughtful discussion about each of these books and how they connect to their lives and to agriculture. So I wanted to make sure in this part of the presentation that I showed you that these reading guides existed. So they are on the website and you can use them for any of these young adult novels as well. So let's talk about some previous recipients. So of course, these are going to be about different books because they're from previous years, but I've got a few pizza examples here to start. So we had a pizza category, I think a couple of years ago, and a lot of really cool projects kind of stemmed from this one. So they read about the history of pizza in this fourth grade classroom. They found Italy on a map, kind of tied some social studies and geography in there. And then they partnered with a local pizza shop to actually have the pizza shop owner come in, talk about his business, talk about the ingredients he uses to make his pizza, and then gave each student a certificate for a free pizza in his shop. Then they actually learned their chef skills, put them to the test, and made pizzas, made their own individual pizzas, and had local pizza shops donate the materials for that. So they got the books from us free, and then kind of put hodgepodge together other materials and partnered with some community people to create an entire pizza lesson that went along with the books. So very cool example of using our books and kind of taking it to the next level. And then some other grade levels here, second graders talking about connections to pizza. This teacher actually made a little worksheet that you can see here that has the book title in it and kind of drawing connections to their lives. Third graders made pizza ovens. We've got a lesson like materials list for this on our website as well to make a solar oven for pizzas. And then fourth graders actually tied some math in here, and this actually reads fraction pizza across the top. So they're learning about math and fractions kind of going along with pizza. So a lot, you can see it's the same book or category of books, but then a lot of different lessons and activities and units that kind of stemmed from it. A couple of lower elementary examples here from the last couple of years. Preschoolers used a food, farming, gardening category of books and did a number of different project lesson activities with them. So for farm boots, I talked about that book where it talks about the different kinds of boots that farmers wear. They wore their boots to school, looked at similarities and differences. And then there were a bunch of like gardening and vegetable books in there too that they just kind of did something. So like Potatoes for Pirate Pearl there at the very end of this category, of this little sticky note here. They learned about potatoes and then talked about potato chips and then went on a treasure hunt because the book was like pirate themed. So just, I mean, you can really take it and run with it and kind of do something that really speaks to your students there. And then in second grade, we had a book, a category a couple of years ago that was all about diversity and culture. And so they learned about diversity in their community and then talked about holiday traditions and those kinds of things. I recognize there's a lot of text on these example slides, and there will be even more so on the project grant slides as well. This presentation, this is being recorded, but then I also have these slides uploaded on that webpage. So my intention is not that I'm going to sit here and read these entire notes to you, but if you need to come back and revisit these inspiration slides, then they will be on the website for you at any point. So just a little disclaimer about those. One more here of some previous book grant recipients. Kindergarteners used the same books from the farming category as that preschool example on the last slide, learned about animal terminology. So like what is a baby cow called? What is a mother cow called, et cetera, et cetera. And then they did like a petting zoo. So they had community members come in and give and bring animals in, and students got to get hands-on with them. And then they wrote a book, created an informative book about an animal of their choosing. And then the last one here is fourth grade, used books from a soil category and then planted seeds in different kinds of soil, some more rocky, some more sandy, some more organic matter, et cetera, and learned about how plants grow better or worse in certain types of growing mediums. So that would be an example of how to tie the soil books that we're giving you into a larger unit there. Okay, so that covers book grant stuff. I'm going to transition and talk to you about project grant. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Thank you, Chris and Kevin, for answering some questions there to those people who are asking them. So the project grant, again, the purpose, like I said, is similar to what the book grant is to integrate agriculture into your spring classroom curriculum. So in the book grant, you were requesting books and then designing kind of a unit around them. In the project grant, you're coming up with a project idea and for the materials that you need to do this project, and then requesting up to $300 of reimbursement for the materials that you're going to do for this agriculture-based project. So $300 worth of materials to do some kind of project, same deadlines and same kind of reporting that you would do if you had the book grant. So you'll submit them by October 17th, and then we'll notify you by November 7th. Funding agreement and final report, again, very important. Make sure that you're submitting those if you are a successful recipient. The fine print of the project grant. So there are some like fine print caveats to the types of projects and the types of materials that we will award for a project grant. So it should focus, your project should focus on materials that can be used over multiple school years. So we don't want to fund like consumables, like we're not going to fund a pizza party, or we're not going to fund like garden seeds that can only be used 1 year and then they're done. Like our preference would be to help you get some materials that you can keep in your classroom for years on end and multiple years of students can benefit from. We're not going to fund field trips in this grant. Landscaping, again, it's the plants might grow and die in one season, and then only that one specific group of students gets to benefit from them. Same thing with plants. Incubators, if you're wanting to incubate chicken eggs in your classroom, we don't fund incubators because many of our county programs have a system in place where they will help you get access to those things. So we're going to leave that to them. We're not going to fund incubators and consumable items as well. So project grant application, I'll pull it up here and kind of walk you through it as well. But with this one, you're going to be giving us a little bit more information about the specific types of materials that you need and how much they cost. And then, yeah, so the overall budget for what the project is. So let's go ahead and pull up the application here. So it is also on jot form. So again, the same fine print, you're going to acknowledge that you read all of that. Tell us about you and your school and your students. Again, principal, administrator, all of that good stuff. Name your project, number of students that you have in your project, the standards you're going to address, the objectives, and then tell us kind of about your materials. So this can be pretty simple. I'll show you a couple of examples of successful applications, and then also I'll have some example slides of just like the book grant one of some previous projects that were done that were super cool. How it relates to agriculture, project evaluation, and then budget. On the project grant, we do also have a place for you to upload some files or images that might be helpful. So a couple of examples of this would be like the one that I'm going to show you. They actually downloaded the shopping cart of the place they were going to get their materials from to actually show the itemized list of the materials that they wanted that met within that $300 budget. And that was helpful just to kind of see, like, here are the things that I want to buy. Or if there's like a plan, like a building plan for something that you're going to build, then that could also be uploaded as well. And then the amount that you're requesting not to exceed $300. So I'll show you a couple of ones from previous years. So this one was from last year, and we love this project. This is really, really cool. So the Labors of Hercules Beale was actually on last year's book grant as well. And so this project went with this book. So this something that you could even replicate if you wanted to. So a number of students that were involved in the project was 150. But ultimately what they did was they, in this book, they actually make terrariums as like one of the projects and in one of the classes that Hercules is in. And so they did that for this project. So what they were asking for, the money for the materials that they were doing, was to create terrariums. So here's the things that they requested: grow lights, heat mats, cords, humidity domes. The students were actually going to purchase the terrariums themselves, but then all the materials and other supplies would either come from this grant or from community donations. So they read the book, learning about all the terrarium things and all the other topics in Greek mythology that are in there. And then they requested from us these materials. And I think this is the one I was thinking of here, where they uploaded the cart from Johnny's that showed what they were purchasing. So that was kind of helpful. Not necessary, but helpful. I do not need to open OneNote. I sure don't. And then what was extra cool about it was they made the terrariums and they uploaded all these pictures to their final grant report. So they're not in what I'm showing you right now. But they built the terrariums and like had them all displayed in the classroom. And then they had Gary Schmidt, the author of this book, actually come to their school and look at all the terrariums and like do a little author presentation. So really, really cool. Again, that's above and beyond. You do not need to have the author of whatever book, but they purchased the materials. They must have had the books from either a book grant or from separate funding or whatever. So in this grant, I'm talking about the book, but what they're asking for here is materials for to do the project. The other one that I have here is for a garden. So this is a second grade garden, and they were asking for materials to build a garden bed and then get a couple of other hoses and little garden tools, plant markers, and those kinds of things. So they found some garden beds that were relatively reasonably priced here. So 46 bucks each. And they got 2 of them, and then they got the materials. So you could do a garden project within the span of this $300. So don't think just because it's only 300 that you can't do something that's really, really cool. So you can find reasonably priced things here on the internet. Amazon is a magnificent resource. So this is what they're requesting. They're going to do a garden unit with second graders. They're going to plant the garden beds, identify the needs of the plants and the seeds and all of that good stuff. Then they're going to observe the plant life cycles. And yeah, so that is the other example of a second grade garden. So you can get those materials within the parameters of that $300. One thing I will mention with this one, I was talking about books. You can use the project grant to purchase books that are not on the book grant. So if you want specifically some other books that are on your wish list, you can use project grant funding to purchase those as long as you can connect them to agriculture in some way and do some kind of agriculture project. So that's within your right as well if you're wanting to do that. Okie doke. All right, I will show you some examples of other cool projects that have been done. So this one on the left side of the screen here is an aquaponics garden. So 29-gallon aquaponics sprout garden and then a grow light for it as well. So they put it on top of an existing fish tank. So I'm not sure that they would have been able to purchase the entire fish tank aquaponics setup with the $300, but they already had the fish tank, and this was like an extension of something that they already had. So then they put the sprout garden on top of the tank and then observed it and learned all about how those two things the plants and the fish can kind of work symbiotically there. The one on the right was actually a library. So a librarian applied for this grant, and it spanned all the way from pre-K all the way to 8th grade. So the funding that we gave them was to purchase books. So I mentioned that you can purchase books if you're wanting to get your hands on some other books that are not offered in the book grant. So they purchased some soil books, some food nutrition books, and then some plant books for their library. And then they made soil SAMs. So I mentioned soil SAM in the soil category of lessons, but every class that visited the library would make a soil SAM and then observe them, and they took this class photo that's kind of shown right here. And so that was the project, was the soil SAM that kind of went along with the soil and plant books that they purchased. They must have already had the materials for that or got them donated from some other source. A few other ones here, again, a lot of text. A 6th grade classroom made a compost bin. So they bought some kind of compost kit, both an outdoor one and an indoor one, and then some like signs, some composting signs, and then also a composting book as well. So that was one of the things they requested in their budget there. So they set them up in 2 different areas and then kind of observed them throughout the year. On the bottom here, the bottom left, a 5th and 6th grade classroom. did a bee unit. And so they used the money to purchase some dry specimen, some insect pins, and then some specimen holding fluid. So it was all about pollinators, learning about pollinators and food crops that require pollinators to grow. And then learned about the different things, different crops that pollinators pollinate and provide in Illinois as well. And then they made a bee box display as a visual to help with their understanding. On the right side here, top right, we've been promoting these tabletop coin microscopes for a couple of years. We really love these. These are like $40 on Amazon. They're very reasonably priced. They're very popular among coin collectors, but we think that they would be great for any type of classroom that wants to get into microscopes, but doesn't want to get the like 700-pound like super fancy microscopes that your high school classes might have. These ones have an LED screen, so there's no like looking through the little peephole. And you can also plug the microscope into like your smartboard screen and broadcast it for the entire class to see too. So we love these microscopes, and they purchased 7 of them with the grant. And then use them with their soil unit, observing different types of soil composition, probably some insects that were within the soil, those kinds of things. So there's a picture of the students using that microscope and looking at something there. A couple other ones, no pictures that go with these, just kind of additional inspiration. Third grade classroom got materials to build a small greenhouse around their garden. And a high school foods class got kitchen scales and did a bunch of different lessons about like food waste and learning about different cuts of meat and using those kitchen scales to weigh those things. So those are examples of previous project grant recipients. This is a lot of text, but this was a semester-long project, so 14 weeks, where they learned about different types of cultures and holidays and foods, and what they got with their money was a grow lamp, apple slicer, cutting board, so like cooking materials, food preparation materials, and used them for a variety of different things to learn about different types of foods and cultures. And they had all of these books that they kind of paired it with that they had in their library from previous things. Okay. So I want to show you real quick here, and then I'll answer a couple of questions before we sign off. But all of the workshop resources I mentioned are on this webpage. That's this QR code. So if you've got your phone, you can scan that QR code. I will also pull it up. Nope, not 15. 25. So this is the webpage. When recording the webinar, I'm going to upload it to YouTube and stick it kind of right here in this big empty space after the workshop is over. You can download the presentation slides. You can watch the video. That's all going to be on this website. I kind of linked to a bunch of different like lesson topics. There is also a page on our website that has all of these book grant books that are all linked to Amazon. So if I didn't talk about a specific one of these books, but you want to learn more about it, you can go on here and just click on the image of the book, and it will take you to the Amazon page, and you can learn more and get a little preview of that. So all the book grant books are on here if you want to learn more about a specific one that I did not talk about. I linked you to some lesson pages. And then if you want to search all of our other lessons to kind of get a better feel of what other ideas we have on here that you could design a project around or do kind of a book unit around, this will link you to our lesson page, and you can search in the search bar there. I also linked you to our Ag Mags, other book recommendations pages, our videos, Roads, Rivers, and Rails page if you want to play road trip bingo or learn more about what we've been doing with transportation stuff. And then, of course, linking you to the book grant and the project grant page. So that is all on the Get-a-Grant Workshop page that you can get with this QR code there. So if you need to scan that QR code, it is there. Let me see if there's any other questions on here. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin, for kind of chatting back and forth in there. Last two QR codes that are on here, I'm going to send a follow-up email with all of these links in here. So if you don't get the QR codes, then fret not. There's more there more coming in an email, but there's a QR code there to link you to our website. So if you want to go to our website and find all of our other free resources, it's agintheclassroom.org. And then if you want to sign up for our newsletter, I send a once a month monthly newsletter. I'm not going to spam your email, but that'll tell you kind of what is new from us. You'll get some grant reminders, information about when the books and the projects material checks kind of go out. As far as timeline goes, and just kind of like the fine print, the nitty gritty stuff. So with both the book and the project grant, it's due October 17th. We'll notify you by November 7th. With the book grant, we get all of the books sent to us. So after we decide how many people we're awarding, how many books we need in total, they all get shipped to us, and then we repackage them, box them up in your specific order, and send them to your school. So you'll have the books in your hand if you're a successful recipient before you leave for Christmas break is our goal. So you'll have those books by then to incorporate that into a spring project. And then same thing with the project grant. If you are a successful recipient, we will cut you a check for the amount that you have requested. So you're going to go purchase the materials, and then we're going to reimburse you with the dollar amount that you're putting in your grant application. And we will send you that check in the mail, and it'll be with you before Christmas break is our goal. So you're purchasing, we're reimbursing. That's how project grant funding works as well. Okay. I think I have covered everything I need to cover. Is there any final questions before I get you on your merry way and get this uploaded so you can revisit it and learn everything that you spaced out and didn't hear while I was talking? Okay. I'm going to hang out for a couple more minutes here before I log off. If you have heard everything you need to hear, then you are welcome to proceed with your day. Thank you so much for joining us. I will send an email, follow-up email here in just a few minutes with the links and the videos and all of that good stuff. Best of luck with your grant applications. If you need help with doing your grant applications, you can reach out to your county coordinators as well. Most of them have a pretty good idea of how to assist you and get you towards getting a successful grant application. So use them as a resource as well. We look forward to seeing all of your names come across our grant applications page. All right, thanks for joining us.
You are.